Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. I'm Shannon Zeman, and thank you so much for joining me today on the most important 15 minutes of your day, where we share expert information on safety and preparedness that you can use in your everyday life. There are millions of children returning to school after the holidays with brand new shiny phones with no guidelines or parental control. The result of this is a new crop of incidences of bullying, threats, anxiety, depression, and sexual exploitation. My guest today, Sergeant Clayton Cranford, has investigated thousands of incidents of online abuse. They all have one thing in common. Their parents had no idea what was going on in their child's digital world. If they did, they could have done something to avoid the resulting trauma in their child's life. Clayton Cranford is a sergeant in the Southern California Law Enforcement Agency and founder of Total Safety Solutions. He is one of the nation's leading law enforcement educators on social media, child safety, and behavioral threat assessment. He is also the author of Parenting in the Digital World and created Cyber Safety Cop, a comprehensive internet and social media safety program. So I'm so thrilled to have Clayton here today to share some practical steps to keeping our children safe online. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Shannon.
I think this is such well, it was important before COVID, and now that our kids are completely on a digital platform almost the entire day, I think it's so prevalent and important to get this information out. So what is the first step in keeping our children safe online?
Well, the first step is, talking to your child about how they should be using the internet, and maybe more importantly, how they shouldn't be using the internet. And the problem is that 80% of students say their parent haven't ever done this with them, and it's mainly because we're the first generation of parents who didn't grow up with the internet, and we don't know how to have this conversation. So I've created a script for parents. It's a contract. You see a lot of internet, safety contracts out there, but this one's based on my experiences. It covers everything that more or less your child's going to be running into. Excuse me, and it's available on my website. It's called the Internet and Mobile Device Usage Contract. And what I want parents to do is just go through each line of this contract and use it as a springboard to a conversation. So the first line of the contract goes something like, "I will not share my name, address, telephone number, or my parents' name or information with anyone I meet on the computer." And then what I want a parent to do is to ask their child, "Why is that a good idea?"
Mm.
Just some kind of open-ended question for each one of these things, and go through each line of that contract. And by the time you get through the bottom of it, you've covered kind of the majority of the issues that our children are going to be struggling with, and you're going to have that opportunity for a discussion, because it's the discussion where you really make a difference. It's not shoving a contract in front of your child and say, "Sign this, these are the rules."
Right.
So that's the first step. The first step is talking to your kid in an impactful way. And a lot of parents, they're afraid to have this conversation because they're pretty sure their child knows a lot more about the internet than they do. So
Right.
this will
It's
help with
kind of
that.
like having the, birds and the bees conversation. Like, nobody wants to have it, but we need to because we know it's going to happen. But like you're saying, for our generation, I mean, for my 17-year-old, I was shocked, at the things that are going on in these teenagers' lives. Like, it's much worse than those magazines that used to go under your mattress at home. And
Oh,
it's flabbergasting to me.
without a doubt. These are difficult conversations for sure. And you bring up a good one, which is, pornography. I mean, it is everywhere online. And I've been doing this for about 8 years. I've talked to tens of thousands of parents, and I have lots of stories of parents contacting me and saying, my child was minding their own business, my little kid, my 6-year-old maybe, and they just typed in the wrong word into the Google search, and they ended up in a really horrible place.
Right.
So I have an entire chapter on how to talk to your kid about pornography. I have several articles on my website about it as well. And it's not an easy conversation, but you gotta have it. Just like you need to have the same conversation about drugs and alcohol.
Right.
Just because you talked about it doesn't mean they're going to want to experiment,
Yeah.
they're experimenting. That's going to happen online. They're searching for things and they're ending up in places that are problematic. So you need to talk to your kid about these things before it becomes a problem.
Right. And then leaving it as an open-ended discussion, right? Like how you're saying they accidentally could be pulled to a site and then be afraid to tell you and then can't get help and start getting spam or all those things. So I think it's
Yeah.
leaving that as an open conversation. So how do we filter what is coming on, the content on the internet that's coming into our home?
Yeah, the vast majority of parents are not filtering their internet because it's technical. And however, recently, like a lot of internet service providers, the people that are providing you your internet are now offering filtering as a part of kind of a family package, and usually there's maybe they charge you some money per month to have it. So there's some options. So maybe like Verizon or AT&T, whoever's providing your internet, they may have a solution for you. You can usually get, you can also, if you buy a new router, or a newer router typically has filtering built in,
Oh,
and sometimes it's free, sometimes there's a subscription. And then for a long time I used opendns.com,
mhm.
which is a free service provided by Cisco, and you basically route your internet through their computers, their service, and it's kind of a firewall. So there's a free option, opendns.com, and there's other paid, but no matter what route you decide to go, usually the paid versions are a little bit more turnkey. You have to do it because not only you're protecting your child against inappropriate websites like pornography, but also there's a lot of websites that have like a violence and drug use and gambling and malicious malware and viruses that can be transferred. Like these type of services block all that stuff, and then there's usually an option to create different accounts so that a parent, if they wanted more access to the internet, they could freely do that. But at the same time, their child would be restricted to safe websites.
Right. I've tried. I mean, we've done the best we can, especially on the phones, but on computers, it seems even harder. Like you go to YouTube and it's like, how do you filter? And they try to sneak things in also.
Yeah, well, there's no good way to filter YouTube. Unfortunately, it's kind of all or nothing. I mean, there is this thing called restricted mode, which will filter some things, but it's really up to the content creators who are publishing to say this is appropriate or not appropriate for children, and then that's what's get filtered out. But if they don't do that, then your kid can be exposed to stuff on YouTube as well.
Right. So here we're talking about, the internet and parental control. So how do we get these devices? How do we turn on the parental controls on our kids' devices?
Yeah, so this is a huge technological hurdle for most mortal parents because
Here.
um, I swear the people who came up with these were not parents. If it was a parent, it'd just be one glowing red button. You'd press it, and magically everything would be fixed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But no, you got to drill down into the settings, and you got to know what to click. So I've tried to make this as simple for parents as possible because it's so important. I have articles on my website walking you through like setting up screen time on your child's iPhone. My book, Parenting the Digital World, was really a response to this particular need. So the back half of the book, the front half of the book is about like how to implement safety in your home
Mm.
on the internet, and then the back half of the book is like step by step how to do it on turn on the parental controls on all the different devices, because
Wow.
your Windows machine is different than your Apple device. So
Nice.
you have to do it on all those across the board. And I don't want parents to just throw their hands up in the air and give up. You have to do it. So try to make it simple for you.
That's awesome because it is a very daunting tried throughout the years. Like we've tried different apps. We've tried different controls, and it seems like it's just so difficult that you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
how do I, so where do we go with the apps and parent control? Like how do you, I know your book is amazing and we will have the link to your book and your website and everything on our blog, but you know what do I look for? Where do I go?
Yeah. So my website is a good source of information. I talk about the apps that are trending right now that are maybe problematic. So I give parents some reviews and guides on how to use them. Commonsensemedia.org is another great website to get information about apps. But I want parents to do a little legwork. So before you just instantaneously say yes to that app for your child, there should be a process, and maybe the first thing is that your app store should be password protected, and only you know that passcode. So, in other words, your child can't download any app that they want; they have to go through you to do it. And then before you say yes, ask yourself a couple questions like, "Is this age appropriate for my child?"
Mm.
Right? The minimum age for social media like TikTok is 13. That's a good place to start. 13, but maybe even later, frankly. Yeah, your child wants to be in that crowd, right? Like that's where their friends are hanging virtually. And actually now, since our children are often more at home than at school because of the pandemic, et cetera, they need that connection. And I think we can still strike a healthy balance. But I mean, some apps like Snapchat, I would recommend parents don't allow on their children's phone. And it's a lot of these apps are not necessary when you really start looking at their exposure to problems like on Snapchat or other apps that allow you to send disappearing images, etc. So don't be afraid to say no. Your kid will be sad for a little while, but lately, I did. My 19-year-old came back just recently and said, "Dad, thanks so much for saying no to those apps." When I
Mhm.
was in high school, just it removed all the drama for him.
Right. Yeah. I even have a really close friend that this weekend she sent like our little tribe a text, and they were going through her daughter's phone, which they do regularly, and her daughter's 16, and pulled up her Instagram, and there were extremely explicit pictures that just popped up. And she's like, how is my kid safe on this? I can't monitor it. I can't do anything. And I think that's what our generation is starting to realize.
Mm,
'Cause we never use these tools necessarily, or we're older, so we think we can handle them. But
yeah.
kids are just getting bombarded with so many things that are taking away their youth, in essence.
There's an app called Bark,
Okay.
Bark. You install it on your device, you install it on your child's device, and it runs in the background and it lets you know when it picks up on words, phrases, things that are problematic, and then it sends you a notification saying, "Hey, we found a problem. Go check it out," and they'll send you the link so you can see it. So, like your friend is actively looking at their device, you absolutely need to put your eyeballs directly on their device. But
Mhm.
also, you have technology helping you where this thing's kind of running in the background and looking for problems. So, all these things kind of overlap each other. Talking to your kid, the filtering. Bark will also filter your device when they're away from your Wi-Fi, which is good. And I also want to tell parents if you want to try Bark out, you can try it for a week for free. But when you sign up, if you use my promo code, which is Cyber Safety Cop, all one word, you get 15% off the subscription.
Oh,
So I
great.
want parents to try it, and if it works for you, then great. There's other options out there, but I've been using it. All my instructors who teach for me, they have children, they use it, and we've been really pleased with it.
Wonderful. Well, I will definitely, when we're done here, be pulling that up and doing my homework on it, of course. So I want to again mention, I think everybody needs to go out and get your book, Parenting in the Digital World. You can see it. It will be a link on our blog. If you're viewing us, you could see it in the back behind Clayton. And I think it's going to have amazing information and insight as to what to do. And don't forget, it's got step-by-step, easy guide to help you in doing your contract, to help you start a conversation with your children, and so many more. And it's also in Spanish. Um, so Clayton is actually going to be joining me again in March, and we're going to talk about using screen time limits to help make our kids happier. They won't be happy, I think, in the beginning, but they'll be happier in the
Mhm.
long run. And you can also visit Clayton's website. And Clayton, you want to share that real quick?
Yeah, it's cybersafetycop.com.
You so much. I really enjoyed it today.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Next week, Kelly Sayer joins me for our monthly chat. We'll be discussing the phrase stranger danger and how it might be the incorrect way to talk to our kids about strange behavior. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You've been listening to the most important 15 minutes of your day with me, Shannon Zeman. And you can listen to this podcast everywhere you get your podcast. And remember, with knowledge, you have the power.